To be a little crazy to be an entrepreneur, because I was thinking about it, and I had a very cushy job. It paid extremely well. I could have worked at that job the rest of my life. In fact, my parents. I think I see this a lot with children of immigrants or even people who immigrated recently. My parents were like, just work at your 9 to 5 forever. Like, don't change anything. Just have this business on the side and work your 9 to 5 forever. And I was like, what? And I'm like, how am I gonna grow this business to like $1 million? How am I gonna help like 300 women if I still have a 9 to 5? And they were like, just figure it out. And I was like, something was not clicking.
Yeah.
So I think like you're right. You do need to have a passion and your why. When you're in the trenches and you feel like you can't go on anymore, you need a really good support system and you need a really good why. Something that helps you keep going in like the dark nights where you're like, what is going to happen next? To bring you back to the light.
Do your parents get it now though?
I think the biggest thing I've done for myself is like released their thoughts. Of course, I care, their family. I'm always going to respect their opinion, but I've created distance with their opinions and what I'm doing. But they respect it. I think I have always been open with them about how much I was making, what I was doing, who I was helping. And I remember we fought a lot about me leaving my 9 to 5. But at one point, I think after a year, I left and they were like, oh, good, about time. after
Really?
12 months of going back and forth on it. But I realized it was ultimately my decision. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? That is so beautiful because, again, Alex, his book is right there. He's one of the people I really listen to. he said, you got to be willing to let other people's opinions of you die for your own opinion of you to become who you want to be. Like, if you're living your life based on what people say you should do or what people think you should do, then are you really living a life? Like, are you really doing what you want?
I think it's hard, especially, as if you like, because I'm a child of immigrants, you respect your family members
Yes.
so much and it's so deeply culturally ingrained.
Yeah.
And I have listened to Alex and I've heard him say these things, and I'm sure he's had his own battles with his parents too about. But sometimes you just have to give it time. Like, it's easy to say that, but like the work to put in to step away from people's opinions.
Yeah.
Someone talks about all that work that you have
Yeah.
to. It's not as easy as just like, okay, they can say what they say. There's a lot of feeling that needs to go on.
I grew up in Mumbai, in India, so a very different context, very different culture.
Yeah.
Although Mumbai is very cosmopolitan, so we have it's not a uniform culture. There's people from lots of different cultures, all Indian, but India is a big country and, lots of subcultures and stuff. So when I moved to Canada, or Montreal rather, the first thing was it was exponentially more interesting because, not only did we have Canadians and people from India, but we also had people from all over the world. And the ethnicities that I encountered in my high school, my first year in high school, it was a welcome class in Quebec because we had to learn how to speak French. So they put us all in one class, all the newcomers, and they taught us French. And so I met people from all around the world, and that was just my mind was blown, and how interesting and exciting I found that, and I can't wait to visit all these places and travel everywhere and discover all these cultures. So
yeah,
that's probably the most poignant memory that I have.
Do you remember how it was for your parents?
Very different. Whereas I was here getting all excited about this new context, new environment, new freedoms as a girl, and in India is different from being a girl in Canada, obviously. And my parents found it super hard with not having economic security because they didn't have jobs. It took them a while to find jobs. Feeling a little bit fearful for their daughters. It's me and my sister, and I was a teenager. And just the idea of girls dating and all that stuff and staying out late. And I think my mom probably had anxiety for the first 7 years, I think.
I spoke to a lady on one of my podcast episodes who had actually also moved here from Mexico, and she had moved as a teenager as well. And she said, very similar to what you said, it was very hard for her parents. It was easier for her, but it was also hard because at home, they were in Mexico, and out of home, okay, you can do whatever Canadians do, but once you step into the door, you have to do what we did in Mexico. So there was that confusion in a way.
Identity.
Yeah, that confusion of identity, and it's like, this is allowed, no, this is not allowed, and that kind of difficulty for the teenager trying to adjust as well to all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it wasn't the case with my parents for the most part. I'm probably not 100% I could remember, but I remember friends who were like, I can never tell my parents this, and I had friends who would smoke, and obviously their parents didn't know that they were smoking, right? So it's like that kind of thing. But I think I was a little bit oblivious to all of that, and I would bring stuff up, and we would have long conversations and debates. And one thing I would give my parents is that they were very open to conversation. So we could talk through. They might be super scared of the conversation, but they would always, be willing to have a conversation, and we would debate things. And sometimes they would like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then, they would adjust and adapt and change their worldview. And so I feel like that was really special in a way. And again, you don't realize it when you're in the situation because this is just normal for you. But when I hear stories from other people, like I'm surprised at how open-minded my parents were and how open to being convinced that they're wrong. Like they didn't come in with sort of this like authority or monopoly on truth. And I think that was actually a gift to me and my sister, because that meant that we could have our own opinions and we could think critically about things and we could bring things up and we could argue our point and we could win. And so that, that was that was super great.
My mom got married to my dad when she was 15.
Wow.
Back when.
Wow.
With no education whatsoever. None whatsoever. Then at age 27 or 26, my mom had 6 children at age 26. My dad decided to send her to school. She resisted. My dad refused that she must go to school. My mom actually started primary education at age 26.
Wow.
She was in the same class as my older brother.
Wow.
And, they tell me the story of the very first day she was supposed to go to the boarding school. All 6 of them, the last at the time was a baby or just a year old. All 6 of them, including my dad, got to the road. They stopped a cab, a taxi. The taxi stopped. My mom refused to enter. Taxi left. Another taxi came again. She refused to enter. She was just crying and bawling. Then the third time, she more or less mustered courage to get into the cab and drive off to boarding school. While in boarding school, nobody knew that she was even married.
Wow.
Much less with 6 children. She kept that a secret because it was a Catholic boarding school for nuns. She kept that a secret for 10 years. She finished primary school, finished secondary school, went to school of nursing, and then came back. And that was when she had me, when she came back. Throughout those years, my dad was home, taking care of the rest of the children and also, being a teacher. All those years,
Wow.
Yeah, he didn't leave her. He was just there, supporting. So for a man who could see the future and was willing to ensure that my mom was educated, despite the consequences, despite the sacrifices, that is someone to emulate for sure. That drive for education, infested all of us. I tell people that I'm the least educated in my family. and I'm not making this up. We cumulatively have there's 8 of us, and we have about 26 degrees. One of them became a PhD holder. The 5th person became a PhD holder today, actually.
Wow.
Because of what we've seen in our father, what we've seen in our mother, how they were able to prioritize education even when the odds were against them. So my dad would be the second.
Oh, hold on. For the audience, I want to interject right there. For those listening, you don't know how profound this is for an African man in Nigeria at the time, I'm assuming.
Right. Yes.
To do that, you send your wife away to boarding school, and then you're home with the kids, taking care of them for all that time. That is profound.
6 kids for over 10 years. Yeah.
To the kind of mindset, to the kind of leadership, the kind of person that he is, like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's mind blowing. And I told this story when I presented at as a convocation speaker at UOC a few months ago, and the audience were quite marveled at that level of sacrifice and future thinking.
Yeah.
My mom is still a nurse practicing. My dad is long retired, and now he has stepped back, and my mom is now helping out and being there for him. The reversal of role. And
wow.
He could see that like 40 years ahead of him.
For more insightful conversations with entrepreneurs, check out this video right here. I think you'll love it. Continue to enjoy, and I'll see you there.